They are just spiritual. They are the greatest things in the air.
They're mystical. People are awed by them when they see them soaring overhead.
It's something that's free, it's wild, it's powerful.
The Morley Nelson Snake River Birds of Prey National Conservation Area lies in this place between incredible biological resources and also an amazing amount of use. And we have the largest and densest population of nesting raptors in North America. And at the same time, it's an area that the public can enjoy.
I think he was a falconer from age 17 to 84. He'd pick up a falcon or an eagle and he'd go, "Oh, big boy. Oh, big boy.
I envy you," he would say to them.
Oh, you're proud today, huh?"
He never had a bad day of flying birds.
He came out to Dedication Point. I went down there and a prairie falcon came off the cliff right there. And then he saw golden eagles and prairie falcons all day long. So he thought the canyon was heaven. We spent a lot of time as kids out here.
Morley Nelson grew up in North Dakota on a farm. He started to notice raptors and their behavior and became fascinated and actually became a self-taught falconer. And in the late 1940s, he had an opportunity to come to Boise to work for the snow survey.
He just had this thing about he had to go look for eagle nests because he had a permit with the Fish and Wildlife Service to actually possess these birds for educational and filming purposes.
He started exploring the area and ended up on the Snake River Canyon and noticed that there was a higher concentration of raptors than he had seen anywhere in his life. And so he spent the next several decades working with the BLM and other interested people to really raise the awareness of this area and also to protect it.
Morley just had this magical way of communicating with people about birds of prey. He had this infectious enthusiasm for the area, and he spread that word to everyone.
Our dad gave us cameras because he wanted us to film his falcons striking game. So that's how we started. I mean, we started with Bolex cameras and 100-foot rolls.
But Morley taught himself how to be a filmmaker. And he said, the greatest thing I can do to enhance the understanding and beauty is to show people these birds. He was using film to change the minds of everybody in the world that these birds are not bad animals. They're magnificent.
In the early days, the eagle and the red tail was vermin. They were all chicken hawks. So it was perfectly acceptable to shoot any of them. And his whole purpose was to get people to appreciate birds of prey through their beauty and majesty and therefore end that accepted practice.
In the 1960s, he started working with the BLM to get some sort of protection for the area. And in 1971, the area was designated as the Snake River Birds of Prey Natural Area, which was really a first for the BLM.
This is the only area in the entire world that scientific study determined the boundaries of the area being protected. The lines were not drawn by any of the political managers. It was the scientists who drew the lines.
Now let's go up here and take a look at the world from the prairie falcon's point of view. I was hired in 1972 by the BLM as the first biologist for what was then the Snake River Birds of Prey Natural Area. And my first assignment was assess the raptor population and to assess the habitat and spatial requirements of the major raptor species. Originally, we thought that they were only going to go maybe 5 miles from the canyon. We found out that these birds were ranging 30 kilometers, which is 18 miles. We found out the prairie falcon was using the largest space. We used that spatial data to determine how far back from the canyon should the boundaries be established.
We pulled together all the research from 1975 to 1979 in a report to the Secretary of Interior that identified the spatial needs of the raptors. This is the only conservation area whose boundaries were defined based on scientific information about movements of the animals and what they required to make a living.
Cheryl?
Good morning, Larry. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. Really? Oh my gosh. So, here's where we keep your entire collection.
4 years. I'm looking at HR 236. This is the bill that was introduced in May 1993. This is the Snake River Birds of Prey National Conservation Area. This protected 482,000 acres of the best habitat for birds of prey in North America and probably the world. I was the champion of HR 236. I was the sponsor of the legislation and made sure that we got this through after 3 years of hard work. The table had been set for many years here in Idaho with the talk of how spectacular the birds of prey area was. And then Cecil Andrus took the action back in 1980 when he was Secretary of the Interior to withdraw the area under an executive order. So that protected the area for about 20 years, but the clock was ticking, and when I got to Congress, I was elected in 1990 and we didn't pass this until 1993, but I didn't stop working on it for a minute while I was there. The fact that it was renamed the Morley Nelson Snake River Birds of Prey National Conservation Area gives recognition to a citizen who started the process. I was the guy at the end of it that took it up, but it was Morley Nelson and Cecil Andrus and all the scientists and all of the users there that sort of set the table for this. I think it represents smart, bipartisan, coming together community that wanted the best for our kids and the best for the natural resources, the best for our environment, and the best for the birds. It all comes together right here in this canyon.
Dad went over the cliff on a rope to take a prairie falcon out of the eyrie, but the hole was too small, so he had to climb back up to the top, and so he made me go down. I remember backing off the cliff like this with the rope, and I looked down and I was absolutely petrified. And then Dad says, "Don't look down, look at the cliff in front of you." So I started looking at the cliff right there, backing down till I got to the hole. I crawled in and grabbed one bird, pulled him out, put him in the pack, and then they had to pull me up.
I've never seen anybody more dedicated to anything than my father was to the birds of prey.
He definitely reached out to a lot of people and they were more than willing to help him.
His legacy, number one, is this canyon.
This special place belongs to all of us. The more people that can enjoy it, the better.
This is a treasure of a resource that is open for everyone. I think people need to take more opportunities to get out in nature and interact with wildlife. You can't love something that you never come in contact with. One of the ways that we are going to save species, we're going to save wild spaces, is by loving them. The very first time I ever saw the Snake River Canyon, I was blown away. This is a little piece of heaven. Being able to stand in one spot and see falcons soaring through the air, to see eagles soaring by, to see people down below on the river enjoying the landscape. It's just such a treasure that we have right here in Idaho.
A variety of activities and uses occur in the NCA. Everything from livestock grazing to power generation and the transmission of that energy to military training and recreation.
All of these combined land uses, they're all right now existing in this harmony. And it takes a lot of communication and a lot of collaboration. All of those land uses is what makes this place really unique.
Out here in the sagebrush steppe, really there's not a lot of places to perch, not a lot of places to nest, and so a lot of times raptors use our power poles to perch. Because of their large wingspans, they can contact two energized wires and can be electrocuted. Back in 1972, we contacted Morley Nelson, and he, was eager to help us try and solve the electrocution issue. Idaho Power built mock power poles in Morley Nelson's backyard, and Morley had a trained eagle that he was working with and trained it to land on the power poles in his backyard. How were the birds making contact? How could we potentially try and solve that issue? And some of the things that he came up with were installing perches on power lines to give the birds a safe place to perch. He also worked on developing different diverter types to keep the birds from perching in unsafe locations. This is really a great legacy for Idaho Power and for Morley Nelson to have created this raptor protection program that has started here in Idaho but has spread worldwide.
In the 1980s, to really understand the impacts of military training on raptors. An entire effort occurred with the Idaho Army National Guard. Ultimately, the research determined that they were compatible.
This training area is focused on combat units, tanks and Bradleys, occasionally some dismounted infantry. We started in Gowan Field and the Orchard training area in the early stages of World War II. In the early 90s, we progressed with a lot of cooperation and collaboration with the BLM, not only on the military use of the training area, but how we can collectively, safeguard the wildlife out here and the sagebrush. This is the example of what good cooperation between BLM and the military can happen. There are great vast stretches of sagebrush out here. We're tasked to be stewards of this land. If we destroy this, no one wins.
My father bought the original outfit, the Clinton Sheep Company, back in 1929, the year I was born. And that was the beginning of Solon Livestock Company. 4,500 head of sheep winter in the birds of prey area. The distance is 175 miles, one way. Then we start the cycle again and come to Lethe, Idaho, and we shear the sheep. It's a good life for them. We're providing food and fiber for this nation, and that's something that is pretty darned important.
Shared conservation stewardship, to me, means that even though BLM is the land manager, we really need the help and the cooperation of a variety of other organizations and from the public themselves.
This is a really special place that we have right in our own backyard that we can take advantage of as a recreational opportunity year-round.
This place belongs to the world, and it belongs to the citizens of the United States. They own it. It's Bureau of Land Management acreage. They manage it, but this place belongs to all of us. And the more people that can enjoy it, the better. There are roads, there are trails, people can bring their bikes. As they drive in, they'll see cattle grazing. On certain days, they'll see the National Guard. Everybody can have the best of all worlds here. and we can protect the birds at the same time.
To fly. To be able to see the view from their perspective. There's such a soul-searching attitude to them.
They're the toughest birds you'll ever find. They are what makes this area what it is.
The ecosystem is perfect here for the densest population of birds of prey in North America.
Golden eagle monitoring in the Snake River Canyon started around 1971. We start with an occupancy survey to see which territories are occupied. About a month later, we'll come and see how many nestlings are in each of the occupied nests. We follow up with a last check of nestlings.
The geology of it, the way that everything was formed was so perfect an ecosystem that they came here.
The most important feature, of course, is the canyon itself, where the cliffs are magnificent, high, an ideal place for nesting raptors. And then the benchlands above, those soils provide ideal conditions for burrowing rodents.
We think of the canyon as the bedroom and these uplands as the pantry where they forage.
Shrubs are foundational to the habitats at the NCA. Sagebrush in particular draws deep soil moisture up to the surface and traps snow. And then forbs and grasses can utilize that water. And so if you want to have all the other species, all the other components like your grasses and wildflowers, you need to start with your shrubs. Sagebrush provides the structure for this ecosystem. It provides food for wildlife, it provides habitat.
The real driving factor for why we have such high densities of raptors in this area is because of the amount of prey species such as Paiute ground squirrels, and reptiles, so snakes, lizards, as well as other small mammals.
The ground squirrel we have out here is called the Paiute ground squirrel. It's relatively small-bodied. They have an average lifespan about 3 to 5 years. They're endemic to this area and are only above ground from late January, and then once it starts getting hot, they stay underground pretty much for the rest of the year. So they actually have to emerge from their burrows, find a mate, raise their young, and then put on enough weight that they can survive the rest of the season. The reason why we have the density and diversity of raptors we have here is because of the density of prey.
The Golden Eagle Monitoring Program represents one of the world's most comprehensive and longest monitoring data sets for breeding eagles. A lot of what we know about golden eagle ecology has come from studies conducted in the NCA.
We're going into a golden eagle nest to look for Mexican chicken bug infestations and then also avian trichomoniasis, this disease that can cause nestling death.
Golden eagles are at the top of the food chain. They're a generalist species, so they take a lot of different prey items, but here in the NCA they specialize in black-tailed jackrabbits.
Most goldens live between 30 to 45 years in the wild if everything goes good. Of course, they ride the thermals like everybody sees, you're floating around. But when they do come into a stoop or a dive to catch their prey, their top speed is almost 200 miles an hour. There's more power in those talons than there is in a pit bull's jaws.
The name burrowing owl is a little bit of a misnomer because at least the birds out here in the western United States don't dig their own burrows. They typically nest in burrows dug by other mammals. There aren't any other owls that nest underground. They're a migratory species, so they have to survive the journey between Idaho and Mexico every year. They lay a large clutch of 12 eggs, which is very unique for a predatory bird. They'll eat everything from small mammals, rodents, down to invertebrates. They're kind of tall and slender. They hover when they fly, and they occupy these open areas.
Ferruginous hawks are one of the largest hawks. They're adapted to these high country environments where the heat is relentless. They have got these huge buccal cavities, so when they want to release some of their inner body heat, they can just open up their mouth. It's a big part of the reason that they're able to survive out here. It's what they're adapted to do. They're incredibly aggressive against potential nest predators, and primarily during this part of the year, hunt ground squirrels. So right around the time that the youngsters are fledging, the birds will go north into Montana or Alberta, where the ground squirrels are still up. They're big movers and they follow these squirrels. They seem to prefer them.
You're going to see more prairie falcons here along the Snake River than you will anywhere else in the world. Falcons are not as big of nest builders as some of the other birds of prey. And so they literally just dig down into the dirt and the rocks that are on a cliff ledge. And that's where they'll lay their eggs. And then once the chicks hatch, after they have grown in their first set of feathers, the parents start both going out to collect food because there's a lot of mouths to feed and it requires a lot of food. They're fast like a peregrine, but they've sacrificed some of their speed for size. And because of that, they can hit harder. They really can knock prey out of the sky.
The NCAA supports breeding habitat for about 16 different sorts of raptors. On any given year, up to 700 breeding pairs of birds have been known to nest in this area. It's one of the densest breeding populations of raptors in the world.
Nature has put together one of the most unbelievable areas in the world for birds of prey. And in that perfection, we had to protect it. Protects the birds, pre-existing uses, and provides this legacy for America to have for the rest of time.
The old-timers, they have stories about them, but I can't tell legends. You don't tell stories during the summertime, only in the winter. We've been here for quite a while. Life, time immemorial. During the flood and before the flood, our ancestors' footprints are all over the place. Yeah. We as Indian people used the raptor signs. We didn't have to have lookouts. The birds told us. There's stories all along this river. There's probably a lot of stories that have not been found yet.
Gold was discovered about 1863 near Silver City, and that brought a lot of miners. So that's what's left over after the placer mining for gold, leftover tailings. Here we see some examples of structures that the gold miners would have lived in. If they had a little wood stove in there, they could be pretty comfortable. We're headed to Doc Hickson's cabin. He was a miner and was part black and part Indian. Doc was out here because he might not have felt comfortable living in the mainstream of Idaho at that time. He was trained as a veterinarian, but he made his living out here hunting and fishing. He was a musician. Sounds like he is quite a remarkable man. The Doc has become kind of a legendary figure. People would come and go, but he would stay.
Our ancestors lived very hardy. You can just imagine what they went through to survive in this area. They knew how to exist. They knew what was available in the environment, how to use it. Everything we used to subsist on. It'd be hard for me. I'd be looking for a shopping mall. Going down the river, you see boulders that have a lot of petroglyphs on them. And stories of our people. It's our history.
Jerry and I figure about 20,000 people used this route starting in the early 1840s.
The government was giving free land so that we would populate the Oregon Territory instead of the British. And so everybody would pack up and move west to get their acres. Imagine walking along, it's hot, 105 degrees across the Snake River Basin here. The dust blowing, you know, it's just miserable conditions to be out in.
Lots of folks died. They figured there's about 10 graves per mile. It's pretty important to preserve this part of our history. This little trail was a major contribution to the settlement of the West.
Priest Ranch is this flat area that we see here in front of us. It's a complex that was made to grow crops and an orchard. People were living here up until the 1960s. People drove up herds of sheep from California and beef cows from Texas. They found a great place to graze up here. It started the economy.
Our signature is here in many of the petroglyphs that are left. They had a way of chipping it using the hard rocks. But I have no idea. I'm not that old.
This one right here look like a deer, huh?
Yeah. Got lines coming down. We look at it as a way of coming back to make contact with the spirits of our people that are here. The birds of prey area, a place to let the raptors exist in their natural way. It's protecting it. It's important to enjoy and live with the environment.
The NCA is an outdoor classroom for students and even a living laboratory for people to do research. Has anyone ever been out here before? No. Today you're at Desert Discovery Days, and we're going to learn about the desert ecosystem and birds of prey.
Oh, whoa, what's that?
That looks
kind of like a moth.
If you want to see a lizard, you can come over here. This is sagebrush. They're the ones that have the light green 3 lobes on the leaf. Has anyone ever smelled sagebrush before? Yes. Pick off a leaf and give it a smell. Like lizards, but all right, let's go, group 4.
Stop. Check that.
We're at Dedication Point. The sagebrush on these sites, like in many, many areas of the Snake River Plain, once it burns off, it does not resprout from its roots like some other shrubs do. It needs to reestablish from seed, which takes a very long time. Probably 75% of that sagebrush that was here in the late 40s has now been burned off at least once, and in most places it's been burned at least twice. And so therefore, without intervention, it probably won't come back in our lifetime. Most people don't get excited about desert soils, but really, you dig a hole in any precipitation desert in the world and you're not going to find soils like this. And that is why the birds are here.
Sagebrush is important to this ecosystem because it provides habitat, and they also play a really important ecological role. They really are just the foundation for this ecosystem. Our hope is to implement a staged restoration project where we first focus on reducing annual grasses and annual weeds, so then we can come back in and reintroduce native sagebrush and forbs.
We're actually going to garden this portion of the NCA just to build something that we can show people a reasonably good habitat at this elevation. There's more diversity and more beautiful wildlife concentrated in this area than you would ever know. Okay.
Cool. What's conservation mean? Conservation means to conserve or preserve something. So we're protecting their habitat and we're protecting their food. There's characteristics that all birds of prey have in common. Does anyone remember one of those? Exactly, they have sharp, curved beaks. So this is how they tear their food up that they're eating. What else? Talons. All birds of prey have these sharp, curved talons. This is how they catch their food. Does anyone remember what type of bird Little Hawk is? She is a Swainson's hawk. She has excellent eyesight. Hawks, they can see 8 times as far as we can. And of course she has a carnivorous diet, so she's eating those Paiute ground squirrels. And that's what's feeding most of the birds of prey that live here. And it is the highest density of Paiute ground squirrels recorded anywhere. That allows us to have the highest concentration of nesting birds of prey in our entire country also.
We're out here today at one of our really beautiful natural sagebrush ecosystems. We were trapping ground squirrels. So since this was a new individual, we need to give them a tag. The tags are put underneath the skin and they're called pit tags, which is basically a fancy way of saying microchip. This type of trapping is called mark recapture. The whole point behind it is to mark individuals so we know this one's different from this one. Just doing an observation study where we don't know individuals and we don't know the recapture rates, we wouldn't get things like survivorship and density. And for this study, we're looking at how density differs across the landscape in different habitat types, particularly where fires have moved in, invasive annuals have moved in, and how ground squirrels are responding to that new type of habitat. Ground squirrels are integral to the success and survivorship and nesting of our breeding raptors here in the NCA. We are the only National Guard facility that's within an NCA. The training area is 143,000 acres. And so I think that the Guard feels a responsibility to make sure that we're providing for part of that research. The Guard is really invested in making sure that we have sustainable natural training lands into the future.
This is Slim. She's a female golden eagle. This bird belongs to Morley Nelson. What does somebody think her best feature is? Her eyesight. There you go. Number one thing on this bird is her eyesight. 8 to 10 times better than yours and mine, which means if we had her eyesight, we go down to Boise State football stadium, stand at one of the goalposts, put her book on the other goalpost and read it. And she can see her prey up to 2 miles away. And you can see her wingspan's about 6.5 feet. These guys probably eat anywhere from 1 pound to 2 pounds of meat a day. This is the T-Rex that just grew wings. Powerful, they're majestic.
Being public land, graduate students from universities come out here and conduct their projects. It's a great place for research and getting young biologists their graduate education, but also for educating the general public. We're out here today for a few different purposes. One is to continue a long-term monitoring project that the BLM started years ago, and that means watching these ferruginous hawk nests throughout the breeding season and keeping track of their success and productivity. The reason you band any bird is to get population information about the bird, so we can learn key things about the species, such as their longevity, how far they disperse. When they set this area aside, really for raptors, they also set aside an area that was great for research. It is really important to me, to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, that we get people out into our natural places, observing our natural things, and appreciating our natural things. It really gives somebody a unique appreciation for the resource when they get to come out and see it firsthand. It's a good thing in the long run for conservation. I want people to see the value, like I do, in this place. The NCA is a place that we share and a place that's worth taking care of.
This is what we call a box trap to catch owls that are inside of this burrow. We're just going to place it at the mouth of the tunnel, and then hopefully we'll be able to catch the female that's inside of this burrow. Most of our studies out here in the birds of prey area have focused on understanding the basic biology of some of the owls that live here. We do annual monitoring to find out how the productivity is, reuse of particular nest sites to try and understand the biology, and we hope that the information that we learn through our scientific studies is then of value to the resource agencies that are responsible for managing the birds of prey area. Owls are important to study because they play a certain function in the ecosystem. They're part of the natural world, and the more we understand about all of the components of the natural world will allow humans to live in harmony with nature. One of the values of the NCA has certainly been its capacity to serve as a living laboratory. The NCA has been incredibly valuable to folks like me because we have a Raptor Research Center at Boise State University that focuses on studying raptors. The ability for us to do research in an area like this, to have birds of prey available to study like this, it is not necessarily found in too many locations.
Conservation education is very important. It's helping to teach people about the idea that natural resources are not unlimited, and so we want to work together to conserve them for future generations.
The BLM works with a lot of other agencies in order to manage this area. And research has been occurring for 60 or 70 years. A lot of what we know about raptors and their basic biology and behaviors is due to research that occurred in the NCA. And we think it's important to be able to educate the public about those things.
The Snake River birds of prey does need to be protected. Not just for the birds, but for us. We got to have something that, as a person, you can go out and find your own solitude, your own peace of mind.
There's a lot of reasons that we do environmental education and outreach, and I think Morley Nelson understood that children have a special connection with wildlife, and so we've really worked to carry that forward. These are ultimately going to be the people who are the next wildlife biologist or are the next ecologist, and so we really want to give them an opportunity to find their passion associated with public land.
Yeah, I like learning about ecosystems and stuff. I really like science.
After today, when I grow up, I think I want to be a biologist.
I just like to be outside.